was you in the blue and the yellow.
Why don't you meet the team after school?
May we count on you in the future?
Yeah, I think so. And bored of this.
So this series was birthed from a rich series of comics that you created that ran for over 15 years. There's been a movie in development. There's been another series. What are you sort of doing this time around that's different, or that you learned, what to do with time?
Well, I think for the most part, we're adapting the story fairly closely to the comics, but this is something that I think is going to put a fresh coat of paint on superhero stories. I think we're bringing in some of the inherent silliness that exists in the superhero genre that gets broomed out when things are usually adapted. But at the same time, there's a strong dramatic core to this story, and there's a very deep darkness that runs through this that I think is, really going to, startle people at times. And so having those two elements exist at the same time is kind of a fun balancing act for this series to walk, and is going to result in something that's very, very different from what people have gotten from other superhero movies and TV shows over the last, 15 to 20 years.
Well, one thing that I was talking to some other people at the AV Club who've watched it, and one thing that we all really liked was that it was reminiscent visually of 90s shows that we've loved. It's not super flashy, new style animation, whatever. What did you have sort of in mind when you were putting the show together? It does look in some sense like some of the comics.
Yeah, I think that there's a familiarity that comes from the visuals. I think that, we had Corey Walker, the co-creator of the comics, come on as the lead character designer. And so he's not only extremely well versed in what makes Invincible. He also has a completely new style and a new flavor to character design that, isn't present because he's never really done it before in animation. So while we do have a very traditional look, I think the characters themselves have a very unique look, but we're able to play with that familiarity a lot. The fact that, this does kind of feel like a 90s superhero cartoon, and when things that happen that would absolutely never in a million years happen in a 90s superhero cartoon start happening, it makes things a little bit more striking, a little bit more exciting and scary feeling. And I think it's really going to engage the audience in a somewhat unique way that I think will, make people, really enjoy the series.
I'm thinking of a specific instance in which that's true. Maybe it's at the end of episode 1.
Maybe.
But I mean, I mentioned episodes, and the show, the first 3 episodes are coming out on the first day, and then it's going to sort of roll out over time. But what did you like in terms about framing the stories as a slow rollout?
Yeah, I think we got a tremendous boost from being able to make this an hour-long series. I think that it's essentially an hour-long cable drama just in animated form. And so that allowed us to really dig in when it comes to the character work and the drama. And it allowed our actors to have a lot of room to breathe and, really give us some really great dramatic scenes that propel the story forward. Each episode, really covers the gamut of different aspects of this show, and being able to have each episode be so long and cover so many different things, I think, makes the show more unique, but really gives us an opportunity to adapt the comic in really interesting ways. We're able to take very small scenes that were very short in the comics and expand them and mine more drama out of them to hopefully heighten the show when you compare it to what we did in the comics.
How do you, the show is about, yes, you're superheroes, they're flying, they're doing this, whatever. But it's also about teenagers. It's about family. Was there an expectation that maybe Invincible, maybe Mark would never get powers? How do you envision sort of the role of family in Invincible?
It's really just trying to inject as much realism into those relationships as possible. If you strip away all the superpowers, does this story still hold up? Is this a story that we would, be invested in and want to, enjoy? We try to do a very realistic father-son story in this. It's a very realistic coming of age story. These are very relatable themes. I think everyone has, throughout their life, they have had, struggles with their family. They have entered into new environments that are scary and different for them. They've had to, acclimate to. These are the things that we're exploring in this series. There's a very strong dramatic core to this that I think is very grounded. So that I even if you've never really experienced a superhero story before, I think that you'll still find something to love in Invincible, because we are focusing on those interpersonal relationships, and we do have this cast that is handling them, with precision and expertise that I think is, really unique to a series like this, and hopefully makes the series that much better for it.
I mean, speaking of the cast, you also have like seemingly like a guest star list of thousands. Like we open up on John Hamm playing like a relatively minor part in the show. How did all the guests sort of come together? And was there anyone that you wanted to get that maybe you didn't get this season, but next time around, I tell you, they'll show up?
Yeah, I mean, there were calls put into Kevin Costner. There might be a goal to get some Tom Cruise involvement at some point, but these are goals that are probably never going to happen, and that's fine. But I don't know. I mean, for the most part, pretty much everyone we went after, we got. I mean, there's definitely no sense of like, oh man, I wish we had gotten this other person for the role, because every single person we have in every single role is absolutely perfect for these roles. And it almost feels like I'm going to wake up from a dream at some point and be like, wait, that wasn't real? Well, of course that wasn't real. Dang it. How could that be real? But yeah, it's like you say, like we have John Hamm, playing this character Steve in the opening of the first episode, and, appearing a little bit later. He came in and just absolutely knocked that out of the park. But and that's a very important role, because it kind of sets the stage for the series, and hopefully it accomplishes, showing you that, this world is populated by real people that have real issues that they're dealing with, while all these superheroes are doing crazy stuff over them. But no, I mean, yeah, I can't believe that we got the cast that we got. It's absolutely ridiculous to look at that list and go, oh yeah, all these people are in one show. This is nuts.
There are parts when I was watching where it was like, why would anyone live and work in the downtown corridor? Like every time you go to work, you're gonna be in danger of getting burned up. But as Jason pointed out, in the comics, it doesn't really matter where you live. Like this can happen on a farm in Iowa or whatever. The reality of superhero life is not always great for the regular person. What do you think? What's the safest way to live if you're in the superhero world?
Yeah, definitely cities are not the best, I think. But in our everyday life, now there is certainly an inherent danger built into living in cities that doesn't exist in rural areas. And one of the things that Invincible is kind of trying to portray is that, human beings grow accustomed to weird things very quickly. You and I are on a Zoom chat right now in the middle of a pandemic. And that is a very normal thing for us to experience right now. But if we were to tell ourselves 2 years ago that this would be happening, we would be completely floored and freaking out about it. So the idea that the benefits of living and working in a city also come with the fact that a superhero might bust through your office building and knock it down at some point, is something that's just inherently built into the world of Invincible. And these characters have grown accustomed to it. And it's something that's as normal to them as the pandemic has become to us. And I think that exploring that is kind of fun, and it makes our world, somewhat unique, and makes it more interesting in Invincible to have that. But I think it doesn't take away that relatability, because I think we can all kind of see, because we're getting used to all these different things around us. Like, oh yeah, I can see how, a volcano monster coming out of your yard might get normal after a while. Like these are things that could happen.
I wasn't ready before. Now I am.
You being a superhero is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. Now take me flying, or I'm gonna tell everyone you're invincible. Sorry, not sorry.